Since 2009, I've been eating and reviewing Disney food for Disney Food Blog and for this channel. And today, I'm finally ready to answer an important question that's been the elephant in the room for all of us lately. Is Disney World food still good? Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. I'm doing a whole different type of video today that I've never done on this channel before really, so I'm crossing my fingers and toes that you enjoy it as much as we've enjoyed putting it together. Just do me a favor and drop us some feedback in the comments after we're done here today to let us know whether or not you'd like to see more of this type of content on our channel in the future. Deal? Deal. Don't worry, we're not going to stop doing the other content we do. We just want to add some different stuff in every once in a while. After going to Disney World for literal decades and obsessing over Disney food for practically my whole life, questions like, is Disney World still good, AJ? Really feel like a tricky tightrope to balance on. Not just because this is something I care so deeply about, but because what's considered good is obviously subjective. While Disney World food is leaps and bounds better than, say, maybe your hometown amusement park that only sells corn dogs kept under a heat warmer, Disney food continues to be the subject of controversy. So today we wanted to share a little evolution of Disney World food and explore why certain food eras had to happen when they did. Is stuff too expensive? Why is it expensive? Should we still buy it, and where should we go? So let's talk about all of that and then what we want to see from Disney food in the future. In the early 2000s and prior, Disney didn't even talk about their food. Trust me, I looked. I tried researching restaurants for upcoming family vacations way back when, and always seemed to come up completely dry. Disney didn't publish their menus. There weren't any restaurant lists, really. No top 10 places to find the best chicken tenders for them. You just had to blindly trust that Disney would feed you in some sort of capacity because there was no digital footprint for its restaurants. Yet. Not only was there no social presence, but food wasn't really considered a destination for Disney. The only thing Disney dining really had going from an entertainment standpoint back in the day was their limited quantity of character dining experiences, which popped off more around the 90s. Even restaurants that weren't character dining spots before magically transformed into them, like the Crystal Palace Buffet in Magic Kingdom, which originally opened as a cafeteria setup before becoming the character buffet we know and love. But just because a restaurant had characters didn't mean the food itself had to become more interesting. The meet and greets covered the interesting part for them. Disney had enough options to feed their guests, a fancy restaurant here, a character dining experience there, a fast food hockey puck burger over there. You know, the bare minimum offerings that were purely operational with no extra incentives for those of us actually eating there. So there definitely wasn't any sort of bar being set where you could determine if Disney dining was still good or not because the bar didn't really even exist. Now, something that really changed the course of Disney food sort of happened in the early 2000s, and that was the Disney dining plan. Before the dining plan was alive and well in the parks, then guests visiting back in the mid-90s could purchase something called the Food and Fun Card. The Food and Fun Card was Disney Dining Plan's predecessor, really. It's the first type of a prepaid meal iteration. You'd get a little plastic card that allowed you to grab 3 meals a day, not including alcoholic beverages, which will be an important factor in today's video later on. Then, after you ordered your meal, a cast member would come up and mark your card to keep track of how many meals you had left. Pretty straightforward. But then the Disney Dining Plan came swinging into the scene. Around 2005, I remember it well because Pop Century was relatively new and I really wanted to go stay there so that I could try out the Disney Dining Plan. Now, the Disney Dining Plan felt like the Food and Fun Card in a sense. It still kept track of how many meals you ordered throughout the day, but it also started breaking things down into more specific details. This is when suddenly there was a conversation to be had about Disney food. Did the Disney Dining Plan make things better or did it make things worse? On the one hand, many folks genuinely loved and still love the Disney Dining Plan. This prepaid option not only made dining more convenient for guests, but it also gave guests the opportunity to eat at places or eat menu options that they wouldn't normally choose if they'd paid for it all out of pocket. Instead of going to a nice restaurant and choosing the lowest priced option available to save money, you could choose the highest priced meal and eat like royalty since you'd already paid the bill through the Disney Dining Plan. And yet, after the Disney Dining Plan really started to get popular, which it really did there in the 2010s, a lot of the really expensive food or moderately priced but popular items from the menu started getting relabeled in little sections called enhancements. That's where you could order lobster tail or premium meat cuts or even fancy side dishes, but you had to pay extra for those, whether you had the Disney dining plan or not. So the guests who weren't all Team DDP really started to question the quality of the food being served at these table service restaurants, since more guests would order more food for less. So it seemed like a quality versus quantity issue had started to take root. Some of those higher priced items weren't just moved over to the enhancement portions of the menu, some of them were removed completely. Was the Disney dining plan really the culprit? Still don't know, but many people blamed the plan nonetheless. Guests also started to notice how much harder it was becoming to get a table service or signature service dining reservation. So Disney had to figure out a way to balance the table service demand by creating more table service restaurants, which is where there was quite a boom of new sit-down locations popping up around the 2006 to 2008 era. We also witnessed some of the quick service restaurants switch over to table services during this time. For example, Tusker House in Animal Kingdom was actually once a fast food joint that Disney transformed into a character dining buffet around 2007. Yep, I remember that well. And yet, even with all these dining changes rapidly unfolding, there still wasn't any online presence for them. We just kind of had to blindly accept that these changes were being made behind the scenes and hope for the best. That's why in 2008, I started going to Disney World and bringing my little DSLR camera into the restaurants and taking pictures of the food to build my new Disney food blog. I wanted to inform people of these changes taking place and let my new readers know which table services and quick services and snack stands were actually going to be worth the money, or at least were worth the money for me, as well as what kind of people were actually going to enjoy the things being served at these locations. I also wanted to make sure that people could see the physical pictures of the food. Because at that time, Disney wasn't publishing any pictures of their food, not even the menus. And if you're going to pay that much money for food and you're going to book those restaurants 6 months in advance, which is what it was back then, I felt like you should know what you're getting. And people looked at me like I was another bizarre animatronic inside the Journey into Imagination ride or something, because people back then just didn't take pictures of their food. But then things changed. Visual platforms like Instagram launched back in 2010 and the food pic was born. Taking pictures of your food in a restaurant suddenly went from being very, very strange to being the norm. And as the era of digital influencers continued to become more and more of a thing, then Disney really started to think about its food offerings from a whole new perspective. Influencers were now a free opportunity for marketing, so Disney wanted to make sure all these influencers really had something good to post about. Disney also wanted to make sure they were at the forefront of these conversations taking place around their parks, which is why they started up Disney Parks blog in 2009 and launched their own social media pages pretty quickly after all these up-and-coming visual platforms went live. Now, a two-way conversation was starting to happen with Disney and their guests, which I map out in way more detail inside my Disney Adults book, since this budding social media era for Disney became such a vital piece of the rapidly growing Disney Adults subculture. Lots of information over there in Chapter 7. And because this two-way conversation started happening, food became almost as important to the Disney park scene as its rides and fireworks and stage shows, because Disney was ready to make food a central subject, a destination piece for social media conversations. Certain Disney snacks like Dole Whip and churros and Mickey bars became just as recognizable as the Disney meet and greet characters. So much so that Disney started using these iconic treats to market not just their snack stands, but their merchandise too. I will never forget when I saw the very first scratch and sniff turkey leg air freshener in the parks. Suddenly, all of these iconic food items were being marketed as merchandise. Disney also realized they could start using food as a tool for moving people around the parks. For example, if Disney added a viral snack in a park area that usually doesn't get as much traction, that could help disperse the crowds and keep certain areas from becoming way too bottlenecked. Disney still uses this strategy today, and if you want to see it played out in real time, just go to a Disney World holiday party like Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party in Magic Kingdom to see how the specialty snacks are distributed around the park instead of all being offered in one general area. And you know what the viral food pics and rise of social media influencers led to? Disney playing with our emotions. Well, they always play with our emotions, but in this particular case, it's the fear of missing out. Now, I think this is a good time to introduce Epcot festivals into the conversation. The first ever Epcot festival was Flower and Garden, which made its big debut back in 1994. When the festival was introduced, it actually didn't offer any limited time food booths that you could taste around. Remember, food wasn't as big of a selling point for Disney back then. Instead, the big focus was the gardens and topiaries, and the festival really didn't last too long at all, especially when compared to today's Flower and Garden timeline, which typically happens all through spring and into the first part of the summer. Flower and Garden didn't start offering food until 2011. I remember that well. There were 2 little tiny booths, and I couldn't wait to try them. And now, Flower and Garden is one of the biggest food festivals of the year, right behind Food and Wine. Festival food booths stir up something in us that only new rides and shows have been able to do before. They ignite a fresh layer of excitement for out-of-town guests and locals alike, bringing people into the parks when Disney most needs them there because it's not high season for travelers and kids who are out of school. Because here's the thing, it's really easy for locals to just pop in and out of the parks with their annual pass without spending money on anything else. But when you add the limited time food to the scene, it strikes up more of a get it before it's gone mindset, and it causes those who might not usually spend money on a whole lot of Disney food to maybe change up the game a little bit. But it's not just the Epcot festivals that are guilty of this. Food FOMO can strike at any time, and Disney makes sure to fuel that fire, even when the hype around the current Epcot festival starts to die down. We see limited time stuff pop up around the holidays and during after-hours holiday parties. We see limited time food pop up in parks that maybe don't have a whole lot going on right now. This is definitely true for Animal Kingdom. I feel like rotating varieties of snacks and drinks keeps trying to pull folks back in despite the ongoing construction around the up-and-coming Pueblo Esperanza. And every now and then, select kiosks offer pass holder-only snack items to make you really feel like you're part of an exclusive club. Now, pass holders get to post something on their social media that only they're allowed to buy, and outsiders get jealous and Disney pockets the revenue. So why would FOMO lead to you actually thinking Disney food is good or not? Because there's a certain group of guests out there who are apt to buy an exclusive snack regardless of whether they even like the flavor profiles of a certain limited edition snack. And if you don't believe me, think about how many people probably purchased a limited time pickle milkshake from Food and Wine, regardless of whether they like pickles or not, just so they could post about it and claim to be part of that niche group. Not only that, but Disney doesn't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel when they're creating these limited time items. I mean, Disney's now at a place where they can slap a heart-shaped chocolate piece on a typical chocolate cupcake and call it an exclusive Valentine's Day pastry available for one day only if they want to. And people still scramble to get their hands on it, regardless of it being just a super average chocolate cupcake when all is said and done. The moment Disney labels something as exclusive or limited time, our brains switch over into scarcity mode. Suddenly, that basic chocolate cupcake is a much hotter commodity, and therefore, we'll feel a lot more important if we're able to get that thing that millions of others are missing out on. This is just standard marketing, y'all. It's something that lots of companies do, and it works every time. Around the same time that social media was rising, Disney was making some other groundbreaking decisions in their OG Orlando park, Walt Disney World, that changed the landscape of Disney food and restaurants exponentially, especially when it comes to the bottom line. Okay, we gotta jump backwards in the timeline real quick to really understand the impact that this point has on Disney dining as a whole. When Disneyland Park out in Anaheim first opened back in 1955, it was an alcohol-free location, except inside the very exclusive Club 33. This decision was made by Walt Disney himself, who didn't want alcohol sales to bring in a rowdy assortment of guests inside his family-friendly park. Rowdy was his word, by the way. When Magic Kingdom opened in 1971, it followed suit. No alcohol. But the rules changed when Epcot came onto the scene in 1982, since Epcot was going to have such a deep focus on international influences. And Disney wanted to keep things authentic, so alcohol was integrated into these park restaurants, along with side kiosks and lounges. MGM Studios / Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom followed Epcot's footsteps and have always offered alcoholic options since their opening days. But Disneyland and Disney World, dry. Bone dry. Then, 2012 happened, which is when Magic Kingdom opened up their new Fantasyland expansion with Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Gaston's Tavern, and the whole Storybook Circus area. When New Fantasyland was getting ready to open, people joked online that Gaston's Tavern would have pints of beer because Gaston himself wouldn't have had it any other way, but no one actually believed that would happen because beer in Magic Kingdom was unheard of. But it wasn't Gaston that introduced Magic Kingdom to alcohol, it was the Beast. One of the most noteworthy parts of New Fantasyland was Be Our Guest Restaurant, which took you inside Beast's castle and originally offered quick service dining for breakfast and lunch and an a la carte table service menu for dinner. And when Disney opened up Be Our Guest, its dinner menu included a list of French and Belgian beers and wines. And that was shocking. I remember this well. It was 2012. I remember seeing the menu for the first time and thinking, oh my word, this is groundbreaking and Disney's not saying anything about it. This was not a part of their publicity pitch. They weren't even going to mention this when, of course, alcohol being served in the Magic Kingdom was the big story of this restaurant. So anyway, we went to town on that when we were reporting about it. But this was really the first time that someone could get alcohol in one of Walt's original parks. Now, Stuart McGuire, who was the beverage director of Walt Disney Parks and Resorts at the time, stated that the reason for this decision was part of the overall theming. They wanted to offer wine that enhances the guest experience and complements the French-inspired cuisine. You know, like the France Pavilion alcoholic beverages did in Epcot. By 2016, Magic Kingdom had added alcohol to 4 more of their table service locations, including Tony's Town Square, Skipper Canteen, Liberty Tree Tavern, and Cinderella's Royal Table. That last decision was extremely controversial with guests since it meant Disney would now be serving alcohol inside the Cinderella Castle. A couple years later, in 2018, Magic Kingdom added alcohol to the rest of their table service restaurants, which was around the same time that the Disney Dining Plan added alcohol to their list of options. To help sweeten the Disney Dining Plan deal, guests 21 and older could then choose one single serving mixed cocktail, beer, or wine at select restaurants. Disneyland started to follow suit over on the West Coast when Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opened in 2019, making Oga's Cantina the first ever Disneyland park location, other than Club 33, that served cocktails and spirits. A couple years later, Blue Bayou also added alcohol to their menu in 2021, and by 2023, Disneyland Park had added alcohol to all their table service locations too. And if you fast forward to today, there's no longer any tiptoeing around offering alcohol around the park since it's now a major part of the Disney dining scene. While Magic Kingdom and Disneyland continue to offer alcoholic beverages only in their table service restaurants, it is available on every table service restaurant. And in 2025, Magic Kingdom went so far as to open up their first ever alcohol-focused lounge called Beacon Barrel in Adventureland. But I digress. How does the introduction of alcohol play into whether or not Disney World food is still good? Well, just look at the surge of bars and lounges that have popped up over the past few years beyond Beacon Barrel. Geo82 in Epcot, Oga's Cantina and Hollywood Studios, the Space 220 Lounge, also in Epcot. Lounges are the flavor of the season for Disney dining, and that's because lounges solve a lot of problems for Disney. Bars are a higher turnaround as well as a higher profit center, which means Disney can rack up all that booze money a whole lot faster than you could at a table service location. And since lounges don't have to offer up a full menu of entrees, some do if they're attached to table services, but most don't, Disney also doesn't have to worry about investing money in as much overhead or ingredients for their lounges to fulfill a lot of different food orders. So they'll perfect maybe a few different options, but still keep more of the focus on the boozy stuff, which is going to be where those main profits are stemming from anyways. Also, a lot of these restaurants have a 45-minute time limit, which means people are spending about the same amount of time in a lounge as they are in a quick service restaurant. So again, Disney can serve more people at a much higher price point. And guests seem to respond pretty well to lounges anyway. These lounges can fill in that happy medium option that guests are searching for. They tend to take less time than a full-on table service restaurant, which is great if you're already on a tight park schedule, but you need some sort of sit-down reprieve during a day. But lounges that are attached to expensive restaurants like Space 220, Nomad, and Animal Kingdom, and others can give guests a taste of a more high-end meal without taking out a bank loan to make it happen. Plus, a lot of these lounges are intensely themed and really fun and give you the experience of a fully themed Disney table service restaurant without having to pay the price tag of a full Disney table service restaurant meal, either in time or money. So I'm actually predicting we're gonna see a lot more lounges pop up in Disney World and Disneyland going forward, especially with these new expansions. Expect to see some alcohol-based, high turnover restaurants coming into Villains Land, Cars Land, probably over in Disneyland in the Avatar expansion. I think we're gonna see a lot of this going forward. Now, earlier in the video, I was talking about FOMO, those pickle milkshakes and heart-shaped chocolate pieces. Now, when it comes to Disney stirring up FOMO, they're not just looking to make exclusive vanilla ice cream or plain cheeseburgers with your average amount of ketchup or mustard. They're looking to create exclusive stuff that's interesting and visually engaging. Again, to make sure that people are showing up to take their Instagram pictures and give them a bunch of free advertising. So Disney develops new trendy snacks and entrees, drinks, and restaurants in their ultra-secret Flavor Lab. The Flavor Lab actually opened in 2015 and became the place where all the big Disney food magic happens. They still haven't let me in there. I don't know when I'm ever going to get to go in there, but I hope I get to go in there someday. Now, this is a research and development facility with the prime goal of creating new and innovative foods for the Disney parks while also incorporating all the latest food trends to make sure the food being developed is going to be the stuff people are reposting online. The Flavor Lab team is responsible for imagineering the plot lines behind Disney restaurants too, to make sure no restaurant is left storyless. In Space 220, you're dining in the Centauri Space Station, 220 miles above Epcot. In 50s Primetime Cafe at Disney's Hollywood Studios, you're taking a seat in the 1950s style home where your cousins, aunts, uncles, and mom take care of you while also making sure you mind your P's and Q's. Which I just learned, by the way, that P's and Q's actually comes from when they used to set typeface backwards, and so P's looked like Q's and Q's looked like P's, so that's why you had to mind your P's and Q's. You're welcome. Even in quick service locations like Satuli Canteen and Animal Kingdom, you're going to find yourself dining in a rehabilitated RDA military mess hall. That's all Avatar talk, but basically it was a bad place transformed into a good place to dine in Pandora, as the story goes. Now, all those stories, all the design details, all the corresponding menu items are due to the Imagineers at the Flavor Lab. And at all times, the Flavor Lab says they're working on around 100 different projects. Many of those projects lead to a whole line of trendy food, and that's why Disney Drinks kicked off that major glow cube trend for its drinks around 2012. I mean, I know we had glow cubes way before that, but this was when you got like 50 different kinds of glow cubes. And also why we had that big cupcake boom around 2018, and why 2021 was the year of blue colored foods in honor of Disney World's 50th anniversary. And why, per the release of this video, we're seeing lots of trendy snacks pop up that center around ube and Dubai chocolate and Joffrey's cold brews. And I'm not telling you that Disney is actively ever trying to make their food taste bad. They want it to taste good, but again, Disney's at the point where they can create pretty much whatever they want, and people will come flocking to buy it just as long as it's vibrant and shocking and impressive or limited. You know, anything that's going to get the likes and reshares going. But seasonal snacks and limited time churros, while they may steal the social media spotlight, is not where Disney makes the bulk of its dining dollar, right? And we've seen several eras over the past 20 years when it comes to Disney entrees at quick services and table service restaurants. There's something to be said about the folks who think that Disney dining has gotten a bit too safe lately, especially across locations that used to pride themselves on culinary uniqueness. A little background for you. Disney has, historically speaking, always been pretty safe when it comes to their food options. But if you backtrack to the Disney Dining Plan launch, back when people thought Disney was consolidating options to save money on bigger food bulk purchases, it almost seemed as if Disney was fighting back a bit when they started opening restaurants with slightly more innovative food offerings, like Landscape of Flavors and Art of Animation 2012, Skipper Canteen and Magic Kingdom in 2015, and Tiffin's and Animal Kingdom in 2016. But here's a lesson Disney's learned fully over time. You can't always assume that the loudest voices speak for the majority of people. You have to trust the almighty dollar. And what the almighty dollar was telling Disney was that the majority of their guests were still buying the safe foods or the picky eater types of foods over the innovative ones. So that's what Disney started to offer more of, even inside their more eclectic restaurants. I know, this sounds like a contradiction to the whole They're developing the interesting and engaging stuff. But this is less about what limited time snacks are igniting our inner FOMO and more about what Disney needs to keep offering in their restaurants all year long, day after day after day, to keep guests from searching for meals somewhere outside the Disney bubble. Take Landscape of Flavors inside Art of Animation Resort, for example. When this food court first opened back in 2012, it served up a lot of different cuisine that honed in on world flavors. You could find stuff like tandoori Portuguese sausage. It was really good. Shell-on shrimp, crab cakes, and a lot of fresh customizable options. They even invested in kitchen equipment to make unique food items that you couldn't find anywhere else. Now, there are still some adventurous options lingering from Landscape of Flavors' golden era, but mostly what you're going to find here is the typical theme park eats: burgers, pizza, pasta, the safe stuff. But here's the thing about unique food in a theme park setting. You gotta convince the majority of your guests to eat those unique foods to actually make them worth purchasing and offering. And while some folks out there are gonna appreciate a more niche and adventurous option, these options aren't necessarily the best choice to invest in long-term for Disney when the classic chicken strips and pizza slices are gonna get a whole lot more traction with your broader audience. That's why even the adventurously labeled restaurants like Epcot's Space 220 still err on the side of caution with how adventurous they're willing to make their entrees, as well as why Docking Bay 7 in Hollywood Studios had to rename all their food items to sound more picky eater friendly, because the names of the Docking Bay 7 food before used to go really hard on the whole Batu theming, which caused those who'd usually love a chicken nugget type entree to avoid something called Tip Yip, just because it didn't sound familiar and safe. Even restaurants that we continue to praise for their uniqueness, like Skipper Canteen and Magic Kingdom, have toned down their more adventurous offerings consistently over the years to keep things more on par with the safer options you can find literally everywhere else inside this park. And notice, you can always get a reservation at Skipper Canteen. And my guess is at least part of that is because what's on the menu is not what the majority of people in that theme park want to eat that day. It's sad, but true. Disney tried to debut a whole bunch of entrees that were whole fish and then ended up having to take them off the menus because people just weren't buying them. Anyway, that's why the DFB team and I review every single Disney World restaurant at least once or twice a year, sometimes even more than that if it's a very popular restaurant, because a restaurant that looked like XYZ before might look like ABC the next time we come around. Disney's got to change those menus based on where people are voting with their wallets. If you're looking for a truly unique dining experience in Disney World, though, those entrees are usually going to be found in the much more high-end dining experiences, where adventurous options are going to be less risky because those menus change a lot more regularly, so if something's not selling, it can just come off the menu easy peasy. And those covers are not going to be as quick, so you're not actually serving as many people as you are in those more popular theme park restaurants. But for a cheaper, adventurous dining experience, I gotta bring it back around to the Epcot festivals again. Epcot festivals have been wildly successful with the food lovers scene because they allow Epcot to get a little creative and offer unique, affordable bites of food in smaller quantities for a limited period of time. That way, Disney doesn't have to commit to serving these items year-round, and if something's popular enough, they can just bring it back the next year or at another festival. They do that too, believe it or not. Sometimes you'll see the same things come back across multiple festivals. Yeah, that's our superpower here at DFB. We are fully aware when a new menu is announced for a festival. We can tell you the festivals and the years that item has been at before and tell you the booth name. The Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village opened in 1975. Let me know if you remember it. And it had a few restaurants, but not an obscene amount. But the majority of the ones that did exist were owned and operated by Disney, because of course, this would eventually become Downtown Disney and then Disney Springs. Now, it wasn't until the 1990s, when Lake Buena Vista transformed into Downtown Disney, that Disney really started to lean into third-party restaurants and businesses to help flesh out their shopping district, which meant Disney had to release a smidgen of control as to what was being served to their guests in order to increase restaurant options. In 2015, the shopping district shifted gears again and became Disney Springs, which expanded those third-party dining options in a major way and invited a lot of celebrity chefs to open up their restaurants within the shopping district too. Now you've got Chef Masaharu Morimoto, Art Smith, Rick Bayless, Wolfgang Puck, Guy Fieri, Jose Andreas, etc., etc. But that's why you're going to constantly hear me recommend dining outside of the parks during your Disney World vacation when you get the chance, because the freedom that the Disney Springs restaurants have with their menus mean you might have a higher chance of finding something that's not necessarily theme park curated and more centered around the idea of we want to impress you with the quality of food, so you'll come back to our other third-party locations outside of the Disney bubble. And now we've come to what was yet again a major turning point for Disney dining, 2020. After Disney's battle of supply and demand shortages when the parks reopened post-COVID closures, this became Disney's chance to make some serious operation, menu, and restaurant changes. And those changes often came with a more profitable approach. We saw 1900 Park Fare over in the Grand Floridian Resort switch up their character dining buffet to feature some newer characters that'd appeal more to the next generation of kids coming down the line, like Mirabelle from Encanto and Tiana in her Tiana's Bayou Adventure Ensemble. But we also saw characters exit the dining scene to save money on restaurant operations where character dining seemed to be less popular, like the Bon Voyage character breakfast that used to be offered at Trattoria Al Forno in the Boardwalk Inn. This was also a chance for table services to try out new menus in general to see what could stick around and what needed to be kicked to the curb. And every change that guests weren't happy with already had a built-in COVID excuse. Don't like the new Pog juice? Sorry, that was because of supply issues. Don't like the price hikes? Sorry, had to make up for lost revenue. Not a fan of the new prefix menus at California Grill and Be Our Guest Restaurant? Sorry, we needed smaller menus so that we can enforce social distancing in our kitchens. And that was just the beginning of a wave of dining changes. We also lost a lot of dining options that we didn't know we'd miss until they were gone. For example, when the Disney Dining Plan finally came back in 2024, there were fewer plans to choose from, just two, a quick service and a standard service, instead of a whole variety like they had before. We lost our 24/7 restaurants like Gasparilla Island Grill at Grand Floridian and Captain Cook's at Polynesian Village Resort. Today, these stay open until 11 p.m., but no later than that. We lost the best version of Epcot's Food and Wine Festival, which used to feature so many culinary demonstrations and seminars from celebrity chefs. Room service was taken away from the Disney hotels, which meant we also lost the Ohana Twilight Feast at Polynesian Village, which was my favorite because I could get a full Ohana meal between 5 and 10 p.m. just sent up to my room, meaning I could chow down on Ohana noodles from the comfort of my hotel room in my jammies while watching the Magic Kingdom fireworks. Nowadays, room service is only available when you book a stay at the Grand Floridian. That's it. Fini. You get the picture. We lost a lot of stuff after 2020, and while a lot of it did make a return in some capacity, it's easy to focus on the stuff that we saw come back in a lesser way and feel nostalgic for the way Disney food and dining used to be. So it's hard to say what the future of Disney World dining has in store, but if you're looking for my personal wish list, here's what I gotta offer up. Number one, Harryhausen's. If there's one restaurant out of a fictional world that you could bring to real life and actually eat at, what would you choose? Because for me, it's always been Harryhausen's from Monsters, Inc. And now that Monstropolis is officially in development over at Hollywood Studios, and we know Disney's not opposed to high-quality theme park sushi, I'm crossing my fingers that we'll get a full Harryhausen's experience that's just as fancy and delightful as Mike and Celia claimed it to be in the film. Now, a version of Harryhausen's called Mike and Sully's Flavors of Asia has taken to the seas recently, which we got to experience on the Disney Adventure, and it was awesome. So we know Disney's capable of making this place happen, and we also know the concept art from Monstropolis does seem to have a building that looks an awful lot like Harryhausen's, so I think my dreams may finally get manifested here. Number two, daring Disney villains food. Okay, so there's a lot of new lands in development right now across the Disney World scene, right? But I'm especially curious as to what's going to be offered in the new Villains Land in Magic Kingdom. And I'm hoping it's not just a whole bunch of poison apple pies and blue curacao infused sugary poisoned cocktails. According to sources familiar with the project, but nothing confirmed by Disney, of course, a Hades-themed dinner show could be in development. And if that's true, this would be a full-service sit-down restaurant with a prefix menu. Disney has actually mentioned working on a Hades animatronic, so this could be where that's going, which is exciting. But again, I don't believe anything till I see it. But amongst the land itself, I'd also love to see a few more daring snack and quick service options that, much like the villains themselves, push the boundaries a little bit when it comes to what's considered safe. Like maybe something truly spicy that lasts for longer than an Epcot festival. I don't know, maybe? Number 3, consistency at our tried and true favorites. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The only consistent thing about Disney World restaurants is that they're inconsistent. But that's why you follow DFB and purchase our guides in the first place, right? Because we update those dudes regularly to let you know if a restaurant that used to be at the top of our must-do list, cough cough Ohana, recently let us down in a huge way. Or vice versa, because I do love an underdog story, Tony's Town Square. That being said, there are a few Disney World restaurants and lounges out there that have become our old reliables over the years, and I do hope they'll continue being reliable for us for many years to come. These are the ones we're rooting for. Nomad Lounge at Animal Kingdom, Le Cellier Steakhouse in Epcot, Boma and Animal Kingdom Lodge, Garden Grill, love you, also in Epcot, and of course, Cooks of Dublin and Disney Springs. Does this mean you'll 100% love these places? No. Like I said at the start of the video, what qualifies as good Disney food is subjective, but we're going to continue to keep y'all in the loop about our firsthand Disney dining experiences to prepare you for your future firsthand Disney dining experiences. Okay, so let's bring it all back to the original question, right? Is Disney World food still good? Turns out the answer is a lot more complicated than a quick yes or no. Are we surprised? Not at all. We definitely have so many more restaurants available across the parks and resorts and Disney Springs than we had 3, 4, 10, 15 years ago. And Disney definitely recognizes that food and drink is a big selling point, both financially and destination-wise for their guests, meaning creating new dining concepts is a bigger priority than ever. However, Disney restaurants are constantly changing, which is sometimes better for guests and sometimes better for Disney's own wallet. Often we find ourselves falling in love with certain items, then falling out of love with them, and then re-falling in love with them when Disney fixes things again. And there's no denying that some of Disney's prettiest looking items can fall into the style versus substance category, being a tasty treat for your camera more than your taste buds. But that's really why we do what we do here, right? We want to make sure you can invest in Disney food and snacks and drinks that you feel are worth the time and money spent. So, if you're ready to learn more about Disney World's specific restaurants, I would recommend our DFB video that checks out the 4 meals you have to eat in Disney World next. And if you're really ready for a Disney World restaurant deep dive, then check out our DFB guides over at dfbstore.com. They are beautiful, they are fun to read, there's so much information without being too much information. Don't forget to use code YouTube to apply a discount before you check out. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. This has been a new type of video for us, so I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Vlog, and we'll see you real soon.